Alright, so I got some of these, what they call ADP crystals or MAP crystals. It's ammonium something diphosphate something. It's a fertilizer. You can look it up, ADP or MAP. They're the same thing. They call it by different names. I'm not sure why, but it's plant fertilizer. I know it's phosphate, ammonium, and nitrogen maybe. So anyway, I want to show you what I've done so far and how cool this is. So I haven't put these videos up yet. Let's see, alum crystals. What's the other ones? Borax crystal. I did the borax videos. They're up there. Alum crystals. If you're not familiar with that, maybe I'll just give you a peek. It's a tetrahedron with tons of little, what is it called? Pyramids all on it and stuff. So I'm trying to grow it really huge. Once I get that done, I'll make a video of it. So alum, borax. This guy is called the ADP crystals. I haven't put this up yet either, but I wouldn't recommend this. This is too, I don't know. I think it's too much trouble and it's kind of toxic compared to anything else. The other stuff's not really toxic at all. This is called copper sulfate. That's just an experiment. And there's a rock in there, and that's what it looks like. That's not, I didn't make that. That actually came. I got large crystals instead of powder. I wanted to experiment with that. Anyway, we won't get into that now, but this is another one. So these are my favorite. Simple. It's just like the alum too. You use a little bit more tablespoons when you do this. I think the ratio is for alum was 2.5 tablespoons of the mix and a half a cup of water. This is 5 tablespoons. Some people say 6. I used 5. It came out wonderful. So basically what you do is boiling water or almost boiling water. I've used, well, I'll show you so you can see. So this blue glass here, they work really well for doing them. Coffee mugs work really well. And this porcelain bowl works really well. So these are my favorite. They grow the fastest. They grow the coolest. They almost look like quartz, but they're 4-sided, not 6. They look like an Egyptian obelisk because they start a little bit thicker and go up a little bit. They're really cool. So I'm going to show you some cool things I did. And so what I said is a pot of boiling water, the mix. I don't have any left right now, but it comes in like I got 5 pounds. And I did straight ADP. Every time I tried to do like some of the people on the internet said, a pinch of alum powder, which is that crystal I showed you before, and they'll grow like really spiky, like spears or like that. Matter of fact, I got something over there that messed up that looks like that, but I'm kind of glad it didn't work. So when I put the alum in with this, I tried it warm, I tried it cold, did the same thing. Nothing grew at all. And I like these blockier, real-like crystals, like quartz, instead of those spiky ones, I guess you can call them, like needles. They look like needles. So, yeah, I like this better. But I'm going to show you what I did. So using those 3 different mug, the glass, and that, I also used this as well to get that big white one bigger. But let me explain this as fast as I can so you can actually see the crystals. So after you mix it, I would mix it in the actual bowl itself, not in the pot of boiling water. And I would put that in and mix it. I tried both ways, stirring it slowly, adding it slowly, and just dumping the 5 tablespoons in the hot water and mixing. It didn't seem to make a difference at all. So I've got a couple experiments. Some things are hanging. Some things were worked out amazing. Other bowls created different structures. So I want to show you that real quickly. So first I'll show you some hanging things here. This is really cool. I've never seen anybody do this with these kind of crystals, but I wanted to experiment. Kids saw this, and I give them like rocks and crystals and tumbled stones. I gave them borax. They were like thrilled. Then she saw this, her eyes lit up. I'm hoping my camera will get it so you can see it looks like quartz crystals. And I just dropped a piece of copper in there. And this took a few times to grow. I'll explain afterwards how long it takes to grow, because they're all the same technique. But what I wanted to point out is, before I say, I just wanted to show you how gorgeous it is. They stayed mostly clear. My camera is not the best, but bear with me for a second here. It's hard to show you the tops. You know, I don't know what they're called, like the triangle faces, I guess. So this started out really tiny and small. And if you could see, let me see if I can find one that's easier to see. So see the big guy to the top, the very top guy. And it's going to be hard to see because it's so glassy. Well, they all formed beautiful, and they were all pointing in directions. And there's a lot that you probably can't see. Hold on, I just don't want to break this. It's not as easy to hold with this thing. Hold on one second. Put that down gently. Now, they're strong, but they're not at like quartz strong or anything like that. Let's see if I can get this so you can kind of understand. Wow, 6 minutes went by already. So they all grew in directions, right? And the first couple times of growing them larger worked out fine. And then all of a sudden, man, it's hard to show you. They grew on the side. So right where my finger is, maybe, yeah, if I put my finger there, you might be able to see it. So that tiny point is growing out the side of this giant one. And a couple of them did that. You might not be able to see. I don't mind it because they're small and it didn't really ruin the effect of this awesome looking thing. Again, it's hard to get on camera, my camera, and then this. So it didn't do that the first couple times, the first days. And then, like, let's see if I can show you that behind my finger. So both of them, there's one there and then one right there. It's growing like horizontal out of this vertical one. And again, you can't really see how awesome. There's a point right here. See the triangle faces? They all look like that. They're really awesome. I mean, I love these better than anything I've made so far. I'll show you the borax just to show you, because that's cool, but I think this is way better. So they grew some horizontal ones on top of the bigger ones that were growing like vertical. They were growing downwards actually, but still vertical. So what I'm going to do with this, I don't know if I'm going to keep it this size or try to regrow it. I don't want to mess it up because I've tried to add a copper again to another one and it didn't work. And I grew that alum crystal you just saw, but I tried to put copper in again to start to grow another alum crystal, and it didn't work. Now I didn't start with a seed crystal. That one that you saw up in the jar, that big tetrahedron with the pyramids, I just dropped the copper in and it started growing. Next time I tried it, it didn't grow. Most people like tie a string around a little piece and then they grow them. I actually grew that exactly how you see it on the copper, just like this. It's so awesome. I'm not sure why. Look at that. It's awesome. All right, so let me put this down for a second and show you another one. This grew different. I'm going to explain why. So this grew more like a sword. It's kind of flat. I know it has the appearance. It does have the four sides, but they're not shaped perfectly like those or those. It kind of grew like a sword. I don't know. It's pretty weird. And then this started to grow things too. At first, it didn't grow anything on it. It just grew bigger. This thing right here was about the size of the ones on the side when I put the copper around it. And then, because this was a piece on its own, then I put the copper around it. But then it started to grow these things out on the side. But it's still pretty dang cool. I'm going to try to grow this one larger, but it did grow those on the side. Again, it's hard to show you, but then let me put this down. Now over here, this is interesting. And again, I'm going to explain where these two pieces came from. Here, you know what that is? That's a Gobekli Tepe T-pillar, if you know your ancient sites. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. So again, it looks like a point, but it is thinner. All right, now what you see here is everything that kept growing on the first and second time. That's how they start out. So what you're seeing here is like what they start as, and then after a few days you get those guys, and then after a week you get that. So yeah, no joke. Like that's what that little guy here was. These guys. So there's a ton of them in there, some green ones and mostly white ones, and you just save them. There's layers and layers of them. You save them and then you can grow them. So you get a lot out. And then what you can do is you can just break them into the sizes you want to start with. I noticed that the more you have here, like this, the harder it is to grow. And I'm going to show you all that. Now, these flat pillars here compared to like that one and that one, compared to these beautiful, thicker, more symmetrical ones, came out of these guys, this green one. So there's a couple of these green ones, and they were done in a bowl. That was done in a mug. The other ones were done in a glass. That was hung in a glass. So let me gently take this out so you can understand what I'm talking about. So you see the base of this is these things. They're, let's see, turn it over. This is delicate. So you can see it's crystal, but it's flat. They're literally like very flat rectangle base. And what I mean is that, let's see here. So you see this is like snowflake and ice, and it's all like molded. There we go. It's all molded together like ice, like one molded section. But this isn't like that. You see how it's all flat? So that thing I'm touching is a crystal, but it's flat. And if I can get that camera to zoom in again here. No. Let's see. If I gently put you down. Alright. I think you can get the idea. So see that? There it goes. There it goes. No slushy like ice. Just flat crystallization as the base. And then it grew like that. So remember I just said if you get one that is a lot of them, that's what this was. Now this was grown in that porcelain soup bowl, and that's what caused this. When I grew it in the mug or in the blue glass, they always come out like this. But in the porcelain soup bowl, it grew like this, so you might want to try that. That's why I love trying different things, because you never know. I don't know why. I'm not sure why it would cause that effect, but I love it. Again, sorry for my camera not zooming in. I want to get to the other crystals. So this is in a soup bowl, and what I've noticed is with alum and with this ADP stuff, unlike borax, where you can continuously adding the borax to however much water you got until it's totally dissolved. They say you can do that with this too, but it doesn't work out. What you'll get, I'm going to show you in this white one, what happened to mine, is you'll get a lot of slushiness like what that looks like, and it could build up and drop onto your crystals, and your perfect crystals will now have like icy, slushy kind of stuff on them, and it doesn't look good. So there it goes. You can kind of see that. So that's really cool. So I'm going to get to that one last to tell you. So here's one that didn't have as much as this. Let's see. But you can see how beautiful and tall it grew. And again, remember, they were this size. I mean, this thing is like, these points are like an inch high. All right, so, and again, they're flat. This one came from that base. It doesn't look like it because as it grew and I put it in a different glass, it started to grow points underneath it, growing downwards, almost like a stand, like table legs. All right, let me get back over here to this first. This was another one that came from this. This was a giant circle around the base of the soup bowl. I wanted to keep it like that, but it broke. And then here's just another little piece from it. Again, it has the flat things. It might not look like it. This one I love. This one is a peachy color. It was supposed to be red. The bowl was, as you noticed, some are lighter than darker. That one's really dark. You have to use apparently a lot of food coloring. Even though the whole thing was completely red, it came out looking peachy. But again, absolutely beautiful. I used one that wasn't that many, like I didn't use like one like that, obviously, and they grew. And again, they're about an inch. This one, let's see if I can get this, because this one is absolutely gorgeous. And it came out so perfect. They're perfect. They're just hard to see because they're glass. They're thin, and they're very symmetrical. This one has a little bit of warp in it, and the reason that is, I'll explain that to you later. If you leave them in too long and the solution isn't saturated much anymore, they dissolve or start to melt or something. But I'll get into that. I want to show you this. If I'm going to make a 20-minute video, I'm going to make it worth it. All right, so let's see. See that shape right there? How perfect that is. It's absolutely perfect. Came out great. Now, I don't know. I'm going to try to grow them bigger, but I don't want to waste and ruin these. I'm going to pick out the one I don't like the most, because when I get to that, I'll explain why. All right, now over here, let's go with this one. This is another one that came from the flat round porcelain bowl, and as you can tell, they grew outwards even. Now it's uneven, but you can see this guy here. It's not as perfectly symmetrical, but those flat part of the base continued to grow outwards once I had detached it and it broke off from it. You can't tell, but there's a ton. If my camera will zoom in, there it goes. There's a ton of them, and they're clear. You know what? I'm going to put it up in the light so you can see it. This one came out so beautiful, and I like the light green on it. Again, you know, my camera doesn't do the best work, but they're absolutely gorgeous. And I do a different technique than some of the people do, and I'm going to explain the difference in the sizes. So this one came out beautiful. Again, it was part of the flat base. I know it's hard to imagine that, but it, you know, they were small like that, and they grew. This is one of my favorites. It came out so perfect. So perfect. Let's see if I can do this. All right. It came out perfect. And it's actually solid and heavier than the rest of them, and it came out very blocky, and it's just beautiful. All right, and then over here is another one. Same, you know, they were all together in that bowl. Some of them grew a little bit better. This is cool. There's a giant one here, and then there's clearer ones, and then there's two right here. Going out. See that? Now you can see it. Oh, dang it. Now you can see how perfect it is. So imagine this one. That's how all the rest of them were. And these guys here are about ½ inch. ½ inch to 3/4. All right. I'll show you this one. Save my favorite one for last. This one is clear. And it looks like a city. And you can see the tops. So you can see it on this one. The other ones are like that too. They're just hard to get on the camera. And this one I kept clear, and as you notice, and you will notice, that this one is clear and that one has the white, and I'll explain why in case you don't want to do that. Here's my favorite. Now this was supposed to be blue. I mixed red and green dye to get blue, and it looked blue. It came out olive green, but it's absolutely awesome. It's one of the kind that I showed you over there that has a ton of them. And it worked. Now you notice that they don't have anything growing on their sides, right? Like I showed you the pendant that was hanging on the copper. None of them grew like that, which is good. I didn't want that to happen. This one is just awesome. I think you can get the picture. See this bottom one down there by my pinky? That larger one. All right. I'll show you them in the light a little bit in a minute, but let me explain this. I'm kind of disappointed in this. It's hard to get on camera. Let me see if I can do this without breaking the rest of them. Let's see. Hold on 1 second here. Again, this is solid, and that's solid, but they're kind of gentle. You know, they're probably only a Mohs hardness of like a 2 compared to, like, you know, quartz or something that's a 7. So what happened here was you got this guy here. Can't really see it. Let me see. Hold on. So let me get down low here. Okay, you kind of can see it. So this guy here This one's coming towards me, and then this one. That was like basically like something like, something like this. And I wanted to grow it and grow it. But what kept happening is, and I liked it because it was a base. It was a small base. But it was growing in all directions, as you can see. So the base grew somehow from sitting flat. I don't know how. And then it grew out everywhere outwards. Okay, my camera got it. So now it looks better than you just saw it. It's a nice piece, but I didn't really want it to grow like that. I didn't expect it to continue these. So these ones all on the outside remain glassy. But the really beautiful ones that were hoping to grow larger, which were about 3/4 of an inch, now they're only about a 1/2 an inch, they started to like get stunted. And what happened was, so all the other crystals you saw, I changed the formula around. Ah, dang it. This one I did something, I didn't know what the math was for some of these. So what I did was that 5 tablespoons per 1/2 cup, I just upped it. So I think I tried something like 3 cups of water, and I think that came out to like, you just doubled it. That's what I did. I just added it. So I did like 30 tablespoons. It dissolved perfectly. It literally dissolved perfectly. I had no issues with it, and I did it in that big glass bowl I showed you, and it was about the size of this little guy. It may look similar, the same, but it's not. Let me show you something so you can see the difference. This one's a lot bigger. So it grew, but what happened was, and this is what I want to explain so you don't mess anything up. So right away with that formula of taking the 5 tablespoons for 1/2 cup of water, and I just used 3 cups to fill it to a height where I wanted it to grow. Now it still had plenty of room to grow. But what happened was it was forming the slush all really quickly. Like, I mean, within minutes of cooling in the water, it started to form crystallization around the side of the bowl, on top, dropping down, and getting all over this. And I was like, oh no, it's going to turn it into yuck. So what I did is I strained it, or I took it out, and I dumped the solution where, nice and slow, where I kept the slush in the bottom. And then I took the slush out, put this back in with the solution, and I noticed in an hour or two it did it again. So I had to do it again. And I thought, was that way too much solution? All I did was take the normal recipe and up it as I went up in the amount of cups. So that caused this thing to have all that slush, which would have covered it all up and would have looked like, snow instead of crystals. I don't know if you could see that. That was pretty cool when it tuned in. I mean, it looks a lot better than you're seeing most of the time, but it's still not like the other ones. So not only did that happen, but it started to grow really cool. And I said, you know what? No big deal. I have all these other ones I'm growing, and at least gave me an experiment. See, it is pretty cool. It's just, and I wanted it like this. What I wanted was the top to grow, the bottom not to grow so much, and then other points coming up. I didn't expect them to grow horizontal out there. I lost my focus here. So, all right. So then the next problem with this was, after a few days, and it was still continuing to grow, I had no slush problem, no problem like that at all. But one night I said, you know what? Should I take it out? I don't see any crystallization forming on the bowl. I'll leave it in overnight. So I did. And what you probably can't see, hold on, is that they rounded. They barely have their top. See what should be a triangle like you saw in the other ones are now rounded. So it melted, like you can probably see it good on these guys right here. They sort of rounded and melted. What I guess happens is the solution goes too much to like liquid water and they'll dissolve, which I didn't know could happen because they're sitting in there the whole time for a few days, and you think that all of a sudden, if there was less of the ADP powder solution in the water, that it would just stop growing, that it wouldn't melt. So that's a little bit bizarre. So that's what happened with this. Now, what I did for the rest of these guys here, and like you can see that some of them are pretty large in size. Some grew up, some grew in all directions, but they kept a really beautiful form. Now, and like I said, this one is absolutely fantastic and perfect and glassy and everything. Like if this was a quartz cluster in the store, it probably cost a good amount of money. It's so perfect. Now, how I did this, I did them different. Instead of putting my piece in a larger bowl and putting a ton of stuff in it and letting it grow, which is probably a good way to do it. I just maybe used too much powder, but then again, it did dissolve and saturate. So I don't know why it did all that. I mean, none of the rest of them have ever turned into such crystallization within a few minutes. Like that's bizarre. Even alum and even the borax don't do that. So what I did was I kept the 5 tablespoons and a half a cup. I put it in, I let it cool, and I dropped them in, and I let them sit there. I think they all did about 4 to 5 days. Twice, I emptied the water out, or the liquid, scraped any of the crystal stuff and put it aside, and then put this back in with the water. And it grew. And again, like I said, that's a pretty huge growth. I mean, you can't even see these crystals. They're so small compared to that. So in like 4 to 5 days, it did that. And it grew out really, really beautiful. They all came out so beautiful. And like I said, this one came out nice, but it turned white, and it also got just way too much crystallization, and I dealt with all that slushiness. So that being said, my next experiment with this is going to be, I like the way it grew. I had no slush problems, no nothing. Now, what I did was I remelted some of that green crystal stuff down with just a trace amount of water each time, and I added it back in. Didn't seem to hurt or do any damage. As a matter of fact, it did pretty good. So I may continue that growth like that. It will take longer maybe, but I mean, if I can do 5 tablespoons to a half a cup of water and drop this in another 4 or 5 days, it doubles in size, and that would be great. I am going to experiment again, and I might experiment with this one since it melted and see what happened, unless I take another one and experiment. And I will put it in that glass jar again, but instead of doing 30 tablespoons with the 3 cups of water, I might knock it down to 20 to 25 and see what happens. I just don't want to waste any and find out that the crystal dissolves, and then, because what happened with the slush from that, whatever it was, it didn't really recrystallize. It crystallized as slush and not as crystal points. So I don't want to waste that stuff, you know. So at least I know that these things can grow quickly and pretty good size, you know, in a small container. Like I said, I'll show you again here before my clock runs out on me here. You know, like this is more than a half a cup. This is alum. I didn't experiment with that to grow this larger, but a half a cup would probably come up to here on that. So to give you a comparison on that one crystal, and of course this would be the bottom, like right there probably. All right. So it was getting to the top of that, and again, that's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches from here to the ground. So I'm going to keep doing that until I perfect the other one. Okay, now one last thing if you're watching this, because this is important. So remember I told you if you add a pinch of alum, you get those spiky crystals? Well, this was a beautiful, awesome crystal, and it was a miniature version of this. So that shape and roundness, it's missing the pieces in the top. I'll tell you why in a second. That little guy turned out to be that guy when I put it in the big thing, which is a good thing. But getting on to this guy now, let's see if this will focus. Okay, you see how they look like spikes now? Didn't do that on purpose. That's not with the alum. The alum will get you that apparently if you can get it to work. But this dissolved on me in a couple hours. I checked on it a couple hours, 3 hours later, and it got ruined. It had beautiful 3 or 4 spikes coming out of it. It looked so awesome. Matter of fact, you can kind of see this one's still good, and that one's still good. Well, they were like 3 or 4 of them. Boom. and then a couple little guys. Well, I did the same exact thing with this as I did with this, but I don't know why. When I scraped the green off of it and I reconstituted it with water and tried to add it like I did the rest of them, it must have done something, because when I came back 2 to 3 hours later, it melted and it left me with spikes. But I'm going to experiment with it now and see what I can do. I liked it because it kept roundness. The other ones didn't keep roundness. This kept its roundness, and it was growing perfect, like the big white one that I wanted. And here was one of the flat panel ones, like I showed you over here from the dish, and that did the same thing too. It melted back down to nothing. They had beautiful, it looked like this, and it's gone. So I'll use them as experiments. I might even use this in one of the big glasses with the 20 scoops instead of 30 to see it. But it's like, to look at it now, it's like, oh man. But I wanted to show you the spikies. So they say if you add a pinch of alum, you can get spikes like that, which, I don't know. Look it up and check it out if you like it. They're kind of cool, but I rather have the ones that I have. So I think that's it when it comes to this. A little bit longer than I expected, but I kind of figured it'd be hard to focus the camera a lot. So you can see the size differences there. Again, it's a real big difference when you grow it in that larger thing, but it's spread out. And what I was doing with this was I was doing this version. I was getting them to grow perfectly upwards instead of outwards, and still grow large. And again, they were about probably a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch high, and I was really happy. Now my camera might run out, so let me say thanks for watching, and lots of love to you all. Give me any advice you have or ask any questions. But again, it's called ADP or MAP crystals, and it's a fertilizer. All right, it's simple and easy, and I think they grow the best so far that I've been trying to grow. All right, lots of love to you all. Bye bye.